I'm Howie Lim. This is Money Hacks by the Business Times. So you have enough money to retire and for the rest of your life. Lucky you. But you feel anxious or guilty about spending it. This is not a financial problem. It's a psychological one, and it's more common than most people realize. Welcome to Money Hacks, a podcast series by the Business Times, where we explore useful financial tips to help you on your money managing and wealth growing journey. I'm Howie Lim, and the expert help today comes from Loh Yong Cheng, Deputy Head of Advisory at Providend.
Hi, thank you for having me. Often the clients that we meet when they think about retirement, they have this mindset about comparing their spending. If I think about using this money to renovate my house for retirement, for old age, then maybe I could use this money for something else. They start comparing and having opportunity cost in terms of how they view money. This mindset, ironically, is the one that helps them to build wealth in the first place because they deferred spending in order to build wealth today. But at the same time, during retirement, it becomes like an obstacle for them to live fully. Usually what we do, other than building a spending plan for them or scaring them to tell them that if you don't spend your money, somebody else will spend the money for you, we try to ask them about what their life goals is. What are their non-negotiable goals, to help them identify these goals as things that they do to give them meaning and purpose in their life. They might not be just big milestones. So, for example, it could be as simple as, bringing the family out for a meal, weekly, monthly sessions. It could be just traveling with extended families, with the grandchildren. Once we are able to identify all this, we also know that there will be restriction, right? We may not have the time or the resources to do all this all together. So therefore, we need to be guided by this philosophy of sufficiency, philosophy of contentment. It's a conscious effort for us to enjoy and appreciate and accept what we have, but at the same time knowing that we might not be able to enjoy everything. If we are able to sit down and discern between what are negotiable life goals, Ikigai goals, then we are able to understand better how we can arrange our finances to spend that. Once we are able to discern this, which means that this opportunity cost mindset hopefully will dissipate a bit. It takes time, but it's not going to completely go away fully.
Given the commonality of opportunity cost mindset, practical exercises or mental shifts may help retirees to overcome this beyond simply building a spending plan. I got to be honest, I never thought I'd do a podcast on how to spend your money, but it is money hacks in all senses of the phrase. So what do you say, Yong Cheng?
So you're right to point out that this is a psychological gap. Obviously, it's not a financial concern, right? Because they have significant assets. Maybe we need to start reframing what wealth means. Should be beyond numbers, but more like an enabler. If we think about my money in my bank, my account balance as just dollar and cents, we might not want to spend it. But if we think of money as an enabler to give me freedom, to give me time to invest in myself, this will probably allow the retirees to save more, to doing more meaningful things, spending on more meaningful endeavors. Alternatively, we should also think about money as I spend for a purpose. If I set aside a portion of my money for family funds, family enjoyment, if I were to spend this money, maybe it gives me a lot more satisfaction to enable my family to have time, build memories, and build bonds together. There should still be some financial element to it. We probably want to translate what assets mean in terms of income flow. Because for early retirees, when they think about money, they often think about it as I always have inflow of money coming into my bank in the form of paycheck or dividend or things like this. But when they retire, this supply of money stops. So if we could translate what they have into what it means to them in terms of monthly income or cash flow, I think this were likely to give them a bit more security, and also they could use this money to mimic cash flow.
Yong Cheng from Providend writes prolifically about this, and he's talked about the strange guilt of spending. People need to actively redefine their self-worth and identity, moving away from being solely wealth builders to confident wealth spenders.
Exactly right. So you have this identity for the last 20, 30 years, accumulating assets, seeing your bank account growing, and then overnight, and you have to think about spending down this money. So it's not easy. Often what we try to envision with our clients is they no longer have that monthly credit of salary coming into their bank account, and imagine that their cash balance is going to slowly taper down. The next time when they buy an air tickets for a travel plan, you probably see a few $1,000s going out. So how do they feel about it? Because by the month end, there's no more addition money coming in to replenish your bank account. So I think it's important to go through this envisioning exercise, whether with yourself, with your retiring spouse, or with your advisor. We can think about redefining what my identity means. Redefine self-worth beyond just net worth. It doesn't mean that I have money means that this is what I'm worth, but instead translate it to, if I have this money, what can I do with it to contribute, to live fully? That's one thing. I think we can also try to connect our spending with the values and purpose that we want to pass on to other people. If it's important to gather the family together for bonding, if I were to treat my family to a good meal during special occasion, that will help me to look beyond paying the bills, but instead an occasion to build bonds and memories. But on a practical note, not everybody is able to quickly transit mentally to this. So if we have clients who really struggle, we might suggest that maybe you ease into retirement instead of going from a paycheck to no paycheck. Maybe they could get some consultancy work, or maybe just work on a project basis. At least they still have income coming in. May not be fully, but this allowed them to gain 3 benefits, right? One is physically they are still engaged. Secondly, it softened that transition of accumulation to decumulation fully. But more importantly, when you talk about identity, is mentally, it allows them to slowly transit in terms of their identity change from a accumulator to a decumulator to a spender. Hopefully will help people transit better into retirement.
Still to come, what does a robust spending plan look like? And how can you ensure you can leave a legacy and still take care of yourself? More with Loh Yong Cheng from Providend in a moment.
Lens on Singapore is now bigger and better. The same deep dive exploration of socioeconomic and geopolitical issues which impact our lives here in Singapore and the region is now a video podcast. If watching a conversation is your thing, join Claressa Monteiro in monthly conversations about things that matter. Subscribe to the BT Lens On playlist in the podcast tab of the Business Times YouTube channel and start watching today. BT Lens On Singapore, now available in audio and video.
And now, back to Money Hacks from the Business Times.
Welcome back. We're speaking to Loh Yong Cheng from Providend about how to spend your money. Weird, I know, but we're specifically talking about dealing with mindset shifts after working your whole life to accumulate wealth. It's time to spend it. We're not saying blowing it all on lavish meals, trips, and things, but living well. Knowing the difference between your needs and your wants.
Ultimately, we are still the best person to discern and judge the difference between the both, because in the same context, when we spend money on the same thing, whether is it a superficial one or a fulfilling pursuit, it really depends on our intent. I could be buying a car to follow the Jones, but this means superficial because I'm just happy for a while. But as a retiree, if I buy a car to bring my grandchildren out for outing, to be able to help my children lessen their loads in terms of this, to some retirees, it could be a very fulfilling pursuit. So the question to ask ourselves is, when I spend this money, does it just give me a short burst of happiness, or is it a way for me to create lasting memories and satisfaction?
Looks like some might need help. So what does a robust spending plan look like beyond numbers? And how can we ensure it incorporates our non-negotiable life goals, Ikigai, so to speak?
A robust spending plan go beyond number. I think we have to build in some of our psychology to help us enable this plan so that we can execute this plan to live a fuller life. A first step would be to clarify what are our really non-negotiable life goals. We call it the Ikigai goals. It could be spending time with family, building our own health up so that we can enable ourselves to live life, legacy, community that we want to contribute to. It could even be just personal development, right? Things that I had chance to do before retirement, but maybe now I have more time to do that. Not just nice to have, but must have, because that forms the anchor of our spending plan. Then we have to then translate them into what we call spending buckets. Allocate our resources, arrange them for these purposes that we talk about, which allows us to remove that guilt when we start spending the money, because I already plan for it. I really have mental accounting to say that this is actually for my wellness. This is actually for spending for my family. It's not just going to stop there because our phases change and then our identity can change as well. For example, earlier on in the retirement, I could be very healthy, but down the road, I might find myself slightly not so mobile anymore. I might want to spend more on wellness, and I could also be thinking about passing on some gift to my loved ones down the road, right? So we need to always bring out this plan that we crafted and then, modified it along the way, review it along the way so that we could still continue to live life and at the same time enable these goals that have changed along.
For some who may have dependents, children and grandchildren, they really want to balance their own spending needs with the desire to leave a legacy. How do they deal with the guilt or anxiety though?
Yeah, exactly. So it is not easy. Often we see our money as a pot of money. And then we start thinking about, if I give, would I have enough for myself? If I don't give, am I helping my children? Similarly, I think we always start with understanding what are really our priorities first, right? Because if I don't have enough for myself, I can't really pour into other people's junk. So that's important. At the same time, what does it mean by providing for myself? There are many items, things that you spend for travel, places that we always want to go, just daily living, wellness. Is the house ready for my retirement, for my old age? I think these are priorities that often retirees need to think about, care for themselves first. Then subsequently, once we know that this pot of money is for myself, then are there any excess that we can then set aside a portion to give? Giving doesn't mean that it has to be something that I only do at the end of my life, because by doing something like what I've suggested, you actually know that these are really excess of beyond what you need. Sometimes our clients tell us that I can then see the outcome of my gift rather than by the time I'm gone, right? So I could see that when I give to my children, I am able to see them maybe live a better life, a less stressful life. They concern less about income, enable their life in a better way. By separating what they need for themselves and the legacy bucket, it allows us to mentally account for our money rather than seeing it as a pot, but it also reduces the guilt that I have not taken care of myself. I'm also able to leave behind something.
Takeaway order Money Hacks 239 is up. So you've built a financial fortress only to feel guilty about spending a penny. It's not just you. Shift your mindset from opportunity cost to purposeful spending. Redefine wealth as an enabler for Ikigai goals, family meals, travel, personal growth, and create spending buckets for these. Remember, you deserve to live richly, not just be rich. A big thank you to Loh Yong Cheng, Deputy Head of Advisory at Providend.
Thank you, Howie. Thank you for having me.
I'm Howie Lim, and this has been Money Hacks by the Business Times.
This is a podcast by the Business Times. Find more BT podcasts at businesstimes.com.sg/podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast is meant to provide general information only. SPH Media accepts no liability for loss arising from any reliance on the podcast or use of third parties' products and services. Please consult professional advisors for independent advice.